This is Trafalgar Square, where tens of thousands of Britons are gathering to commemorate 80 years since the end of the Second World War in Europe. This is the 80th anniversary of VE Day. On the 8th of May 1945, Britain erupts. After 6 punishing, brutal, long years of war, peace has finally come to the continent of Europe. People flood Trafalgar Square. Whitehall, behind me, is filled with tens of thousands of people hugging, kissing strangers, dancing in the streets. It came to be known as VE Day, Victory in Europe, and this week, Britain commemorates 80 years since that momentous occasion. But behind the joy, Europe lay in ruins, and a new conflict was already beginning to take shape. Welcome to History Counts. Before we go on, if you're interested in the history that still shapes today, do hit subscribe. I make weekly videos unpacking the past and how it still influences us today. The celebrations were instant and massive. Across the country, in cities like Glasgow, Cardiff and Liverpool, people flooded onto the streets. Flags were everywhere, street parties popped up out of nowhere, cheering rang out. Big Ben sounded across the capital. Winston Churchill, Britain's wartime Prime Minister, who'd inspired the country through its darkest moments 5 years before, addressed the nation. He stood on a balcony at the Ministry of Health, of all places, on Whitehall behind me, and told the crowds, "This is your victory." They chanted back to him, "No, it's yours." But Churchill also knew something the crowds didn't want to hear at that moment. The war wasn't completely won just yet. In the Pacific, Japan was still fighting, and the Allies were preparing for a full-scale invasion of the island. It would take the devastation of nuclear bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki for World War II to be brought to its final conclusion. And whilst Britain celebrated, the rest of Europe was in a far darker place. Cities across Germany had been flattened. Poland, France, the Netherlands were all devastated. Over the course of 6 years of warfare, 60 million people had died, many of them civilians. And, of course, the horrors of the Holocaust were finally coming to light. Europe wasn't just wounded, it was shattered. Economies had collapsed. Vast tracts of infrastructure were gone. Trust in governments was eroded, and amid the ruins, a new line was being opened. The Soviet Union, Russia, now occupied half of Europe, and its dictator, Joseph Stalin, had no intention of leaving. Churchill would later describe an iron curtain coming down across Europe. With nuclear weapons entering the equation, a new, potentially more dangerous age was dawning in Europe. VE Day then didn't just mark victory. It marks the end of one war and the quiet beginning of the next. Since then, we've remembered VE Day every year as a symbol of unity, resilience, and sacrifice. It's commemorated through parades, through silence, and through stories told through the generations. In 1995, in 2020, and again this year, we've marked major anniversaries of the day with moments of national reflection. World War II retains a unique and pivotal role in the story of British national identity. But each year, fewer and fewer veterans of World War II remain. The memories become more distant. And the consequence of that is that 80 years on from victory in Europe, we find it harder and harder to answer the question of who we are as a nation. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I'm still quite a new YouTube channel, so any subscriptions are hugely appreciated. The same with feedback. Each week, I make a video looking to unpack the history behind stories in the news to show why history is still relevant today.